Finally, Star Fox Zero is here, one of my most long-awaited games for my Wii U system.
Yes, I am one of those faithful Wii U guys. I have never given up on my brand, to the point where I'm called a Nintendo fanboy almost daily. There's nothing in this world that is going to prevent me from playing my upcoming Zelda Wii U
and my Star Fox Zero. I've been a big Star Fox fan since day one. The first time I ever laid my hands on my Super Nintendo controller and played Star Fox, I was mesmerized. Journeying through space, shooting the hell out of my enemies, and being part of an epic 4-man squad was something I never experienced before. I can still remember the first time I even experienced the hyperspace scene.
I literally lost my breath and almost fainted. At 9 years old, just seeing something that looked so 3D, realistic. I know people are going to be like, oh my god, Eric, that looks like shit, but words cannot give any kind of justice to just how much that one little scene impacted me, and overall, Star Fox on the Super Nintendo affected me.
Playing in what was 3D graphics at the time was just so neat. I was a fan for life. When Star Fox 64 came out, I fell in love with the series all over again and spent a whole summer playing what I felt and still feel was one of the greatest video games, not just on the Nintendo 64, but gaming history, period. Countless nights exploring, looking for secrets, trying to obtain every medal in the game, Star Fox 64 was everything I loved about the original Star Fox and more.
Throughout the years, we've had other entries in the series, including Star Fox Adventures,
which I felt wasn't that bad. Come on, people, admit it, it was not that bad. But then, we had a couple of titles that weren't so great. Maybe I was just mesmerized by my nostalgia of the first two games. When the Wii U came out, I was just waiting patiently for a new Star Fox title to come out. And it felt like it was never going to happen, honestly. But the second it was confirmed at E3 with freaking puppets, yes, puppets, I was waiting like a schoolgirl going to prom in anticipation.
And after what seemed like an eternity for a wait, the game is finally here.
My initial reaction of beginning the game and arriving in Corneria was such an epic rush. I immediately felt like I was in for a treat. However, once I got into the middle of playing the game, I didn't feel as compelled to play as I did with Star Fox 64. I felt like there was not enough stages. Star Fox 64 had a variety of levels, each one pretty memorable for the most part. But most of all, I felt like I was playing Star Fox 64 in terms of graphics, gameplay, and overall design. Star Fox Zero, while it had some good stage design and a huge wave of nostalgia for me, some of the levels just felt a little bit uninspired. The Secret Aqua Flora stage is a good example. While the boss is challenging and at times cheap with his attack, it just felt a little basic, with the objective being to just destroy its satellites. I arrived quickly at Venom, and after a few attempts at Andros, I decided to go back and find what alternative routes I could do on the map. And even then, I still felt like this game missed out on being twice the size of previous entries in the series.
Feels like a rehash more than anything. After waiting for so long, after disappointing games, I just wanted something more meatier, something more epic than what we got.
To be the same size, feel, or look as a console that came out in the 90s, ultimately I was just not wowed when I wanted to be.
This, in theory, doesn't sound like a bad thing. Star Fox 64 is one of my favorite games of all time, but I gotta say, after waiting for so long, it was a major letdown.
Sure, there are several things I like about this game. It definitely feels like a Star Fox game, and I appreciate that it is a revision of Star Fox 64, which, of course, as I mentioned, is a game I love. And I think the soundtrack is just pure classic. It definitely feels like a classic Star Fox game that I've been waiting for.
With all due respect to Star Fox 64, I did not want a game to be another Star Fox 64 clone, especially in what has been labeled the next generation of games. I wanted something impactful, something totally out of the ordinary. Ultimately, I just was not satisfied. I wanted to be wowed with Star Fox Zero, and even after giving it the benefit of a doubt and still continuing to press further, playing for several hours, I'm just not feeling satisfied. And let me clarify, this game is not as bad as people say it is. This is by no means a horrible game. However, I will agree with the general consensus that the biggest aspect of this game that is a letdown is its controls.
Yes, the control uses the dreaded gamepad. Now, normally, I don't care about using the gamepad, as its use has never bothered me with any title on the Wii U's library until this game. That is because the game's initial gameplay utilizes gyro motion controls in order to aim your fire against the enemies on screen. Ultimately, it is very awkward, and you have to play it in order to believe it. ZR is used to fire your lasers. You auto-lock with ZL, but it also seems to not work properly whenever I attempt to use it. It does come in handy when in all-range mode, and you need to see where your enemies are, especially those Star Wolf assholes.
Now, later on, I found out that there is indeed an option to select gyro motion controls to be turned off unless you're shooting. And I really wish Nintendo would have been a little bit more vocal about this, or at least mentioned it during the tutorial of the game, because I had to watch another YouTuber's video in order to understand that this was an option.
You access it by pausing the menu and tapping the option on the gamepad. It changes the gameplay quite a bit, but the motion control comes back on whenever you use ZR, so be careful not to hold it. If you press the minus button, you can switch which view you have on the TV and gamepad, and sometimes it's actually best to have the cockpit view on your TV because some areas and bosses are just too much without the aiming reticule because they send you into this weird third-person camera angle that is always seen from a skewed perspective that just basically keeps everything at a weird angle. The aiming's at an angle, and the angle that you see will allow you to frequently miss if you try to trust it with anything. So in order to hit the game's enemies efficiently, you'll need to use the first-person view.
In other words, you're better off trying to fly a fucking real R-Wing than trying to get used to these bullshit innovative controls. What is wrong with being able to pick up a game and play it easily with a classic controller? Why does Nintendo insist on these innovative gimmicks? I'm a Nintendo guy, but I'm sick and tired of them. There was nothing wrong with the original SNES game. Why can't we just have that? Overall, in regards to control, other than my old habits from previous Star Fox games, such as using X to boost and the gyro motion controls, I guess you could say they're kind of solid. This game would have been much better had the gyro motion controls not been implemented at all and we went with the classic control format. But wait a minute. This is how I feel just about the R-Wings. There is a variety of vehicles in this game that you can play, and that initial reaction, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be badass.
The Gyro Ring is a helicopter-like vehicle introduced in Star Fox Zero, but thanks to motion control, aiming makes this vehicle very hard to navigate. The right analog stick rotates the actual shift, the left analog steers. The gyro controls aim, and you can't turn them off with this vehicle, even if you select the option. This vehicle's main gimmick is the robot that you can deploy to reach certain areas, explore, and hit switches. However, if you think Navi from Ocarina of Time was annoying to listen to, oh boy, you're in for a real treat with this little guy. ZR is used to change the camera to an overhead perspective in order to see where you can place the robot, but overall the experience is just awkward as fuck for me. Most of the levels featuring this vehicle seem very tedious, long, and boring in my opinion. I'm looking at you, Zonis. But what do I know, right? The Landmaster is as solid as ever and plays just like the R-Wing, and the levels for it are as memorable as the ones from Star Fox 64. And later it becomes equipped with some new upgrades and is now called the Gravmaster. Sounds like one of those knockoff NES accessories that came out in the 90s. What the Gravmaster does is it actually changes into an R-Wing-like ship for a limited time. As long as your boost meter has powers, you can fly as a fucking tank. Much better than the hovering the Landmaster does alone. Honestly, out of all the vehicles, the motion control aiming works best with the Gravmaster, but forget doing it with any other vehicle. Last but not least, we have the most popular new option of the vehicles, and that is the ability to transform your R-Wing at any time into a chicken-like walker. This is neat because you can seamlessly do it at any time, but the control feels extremely loose. I personally do not enjoy the way the controls feel for any of the extra vehicles, except the Landmaster. Many levels have you start in one vehicle for a phase, but you can transition to others as needed, depending on where the mission takes you or the decisions you make when faced with the boss. You can occasionally force these changes as well, if you'd prefer. Doing so could even lead you to find some of the off-the-beaten-path areas. Now, I understand the need to put variety in the game, but the use of the motion controls and how loose some of these vehicles feel when operating, along with the camera angles with them, I just feel like they really take a toll on me. I experienced the same feeling with Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, in fact. Actually, regardless if you use gyro controls or not, the gamepad is mandatory, and you'll need to constantly look at both the TV and handheld screens regardless.
Luckily, the majority of the missions in the game use the R-Wing, so I guess I can't complain too much. It's just those levels that force you to use the gyro wing are just a bummer. Now, let's talk about the other game modes very briefly, and I emphasize the word briefly because in regards to other modes on Star Fox Zero, they feel quite a bit thrown in.
This game has amiibo support. Imagine that. It supports the Fox and Falco amiibos. By tapping the Fox amiibo to the gamepad, you'll unlock a retro R-Wing from the Super Nintendo game. And I'm gonna admit, this is actually pretty cool. It changes the look and even the intro music of the first stage.
Falco amiibo unlocks a black R-Wing, which deals a lot more damage than the regular one, but it also takes a lot. So if you're looking for a hard challenge and you're one of those, I guess, MLG gamers, get a Falco amiibo and use it, and it would add a definite amount of difficulty to this game. There is no online functionality. Sadly, I think this game would have done better if there would have been any kind of online modes. I mean, online multiplayer would be cool. I thought multiplayer in Star Fox 64 is freaking fantastic, but it's not here. It's a next-gen game, no online capabilities. There is a co-op mode available, and it's not the way that you would think. Common sense would say have two separate R-Wings on screen, split screen, whatever, and each player controls a member of the team. However, one player uses the Wii U gamepad in order to shoot, and the other player uses the nunchuck Wii remote combo to control the R-Wing.
My favorite part of this game are the insane boss fights. They're all massive as fuck, and while some are simple in their weak points, they do offer an amazing bit of challenge since they often require you to master certain skills. Seriously, the boss on the Grab Master stage was my worst nightmare. So once again, Zonus, go fist yourself with your gyro ring. I'm taking the R-Wing. In addition to those unlockables, there is training missions and 5 medals for every level in the game, so if you are a completionist, you will get some replay value in Star Fox Zero.
As I mentioned, the replayability is there. It's pretty high. There's 5 medals for each stage, there's secret routes, secret levels, and there's one stage that I really like, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but here's a small hint. Do a barrel roll. So, Star Fox Zero, game that I had been waiting to play on my Wii U for a long time, since I bought it in 2012. Slightly disappointed. I was not wowed. This was the equivalent of getting to eat one slice of pizza and then going back for seconds and seeing that there's no more slices left. This is like banging that hot chick from high school and finding out that she is not as good as you thought she would be in bed, and you waited 10 years for a piece of that punane. Seriously, Star Fox Zero, slight disappointment, and only because of the gyro controls and the lack of stages. I was hoping for more. I was hoping for more gameplay, hoping for a better story. The story is exactly the same as Star Fox 64. In other words, this felt like a rehash. They do it with Zelda all the time. They do it with Star Fox all the time. Make something new, guys. Star Fox is one of my favorite franchises, and I feel that they held back on this game. And unfortunately, it might be because the Wii U is essentially dead. But, I mean, this was uncalled for. You might as well have not even made the game. We were already waiting long enough. Now, is this worth a shot? Yes, this is worth the play because I rank this about a 7 or an 8. I would say more towards an 8 because this game is pretty solid. It already has a bad label coming on top of it with, like as I mentioned, the Wii U being dead, Nintendo just not really having a good reputation amongst hardcore gamers at this time. So if you're a fan of Star Fox, you're going to enjoy this way more than the last 3 games that have come out in the series. But you might feel a little disappointed. If you're new to Star Fox, I recommend you try Star Fox 64 first. You might like that a little bit more. And well, guys, that is it for today's review. Thanks a lot for watching. Do not forget, do a barrel roll.